Emily was not the kind of person to back down from a challenge. With just 1 week before her trip to the United States, she knew she needed to do something bold to boost her English skills. Her approach was anything but traditional. Instead of diving into textbooks or memorizing grammar rules, Emily kicked off her journey with an immersive listening experience. She decided that on day 1, she wouldn't open a single book. Instead, she would surround herself with English in the most natural way possible. From the moment she woke up, Emily filled her apartment with the sounds of English. She played podcasts, movies, and YouTube videos in the background while going about her daily routine. While brushing her teeth, she listened to an upbeat English podcast. The lively voices of the hosts discussing everyday topics made her feel as if she were part of the conversation. She found herself nodding along and occasionally chuckling at a funny story, even if she didn't catch every word. In the kitchen, Emily continued her auditory immersion. She played a light-hearted English movie on her laptop as she prepared breakfast. The sizzling of eggs in the pan mixed with the cheerful dialogues of the characters on screen. Every now and then, she would catch a catchy phrase or a funny expression. Without overthinking it, she'd repeat it out loud, mimicking the accent and intonation. "That's hilarious," she'd say, trying to match the tone of the actor. She felt a bit silly at first, but soon it became a fun exercise. Her apartment turned into a mini English bubble, and she was soaking it all in. Emily's strategy was simple but effective. She wasn't actively studying English, she was living in it. She put on an English playlist while cleaning her apartment. The lyrics of pop songs helped her pick up new vocabulary in a natural way. She even switched the language settings on her phone and computer to English. This small change turned every notification, every app interaction, into a learning opportunity. When she received a message, she'd read it in English, and when replying, she challenged herself to think in English first. While going for a walk, Emily continued her listening practice. She popped in her earbuds and played an English audiobook. The narrator's soothing voice painted vivid images in her mind. She wasn't focused on understanding every detail. Instead, she allowed the rhythm of the language to flow naturally, getting used to the sounds and the pace of native English speech. She noticed that when she relaxed and just listened, she caught more than when she tried too hard to translate every word. By the afternoon, Emily found herself naturally repeating phrases. When she dropped a spoon, she muttered, "Oops, my bad," mimicking a phrase she heard earlier. She found joy in these small victories, in the moments where English flowed naturally from her lips. It was like a melody she was beginning to hum along to, even if she didn't know all the lyrics yet. As the day came to a close, Emily realized that she had been surrounded by English for nearly 12 hours. She hadn't sat down to formally study a single time, but she had learned so much. Her ears felt tuned to English sounds, and her mind was starting to connect familiar words with their meanings automatically. She felt proud and, more importantly, motivated to continue. The fear of her upcoming trip began to transform into excitement. She couldn't wait for day 2, where she planned to push herself even further. Today had been all about listening, but tomorrow, she would take a bolder step. She would start talking, even if it was only to herself. Waking up on day 2, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had spent the entire first day immersing herself in English sounds, letting the language flow through her apartment like a comforting melody. Her ears had started catching phrases, her mind was beginning to recognize words without effort, but today, she knew it was time to take a bolder step. Listening was just the beginning. Now, it was time to speak. Emily decided to challenge herself in a way that felt safe yet effective. She would talk to herself, out loud, in English, all day long. At first, the idea felt strange. She hesitated as she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand. "Good morning, Emily," she said to her reflection. Her voice sounded small, a little unsure, but the simple act of saying it aloud gave her a surprising boost of confidence. She pushed forward, narrating her morning routine as if she were a character in a story. "I am brushing my teeth. I am making breakfast. The toast smells so good." The more she spoke, the more natural it felt. Throughout the day, Emily kept up this self-dialogue. While cooking, she described every step of her recipe in English. First, I crack the eggs. Now, I whisk them until they are fluffy. When she went for a walk, she pointed out things to herself. The sky is so blue today. Those flowers are beautiful. It was a practice in simplicity, nothing too complex, just speaking as much as she could. She even practiced small talk with her reflection, imagining scenarios she might encounter on her trip. Hi. How are you? Could you help me find the nearest coffee shop? I'd love to try that dish, what do you recommend? Emily took this self-talk practice into every corner of her day. When she sat down to have lunch, she imagined she was in a cafe in New York City. She narrated her meal as if talking to a waiter. I'd like a cup of coffee, please. Oh, thank you. This sandwich looks delicious. She turned ordinary moments into opportunities for conversation, turning the mundane into a fun rehearsal for real-life interactions. She even recorded herself talking, playing it back to identify which words sounded right and which needed work. At first, hearing her own voice felt awkward, but she quickly noticed her pronunciation improving, and with it, her confidence. One of the most powerful techniques Emily adopted was storytelling. Before bed, she would recount her day in English, almost like keeping a diary but out loud. Today, I went for a walk in the park. I saw a cute dog playing fetch. It made me smile. She focused not just on the words but on expressing herself, adding small details, and experimenting with new vocabulary. She challenged herself to use phrases she had heard the previous day, weaving them into her story naturally. Emily also introduced affirmations into her routine. Each morning, she would look into the mirror, take a deep breath, and declare, "Today, I am going to be an English champion." She spoke with intention, with a growing sense of belief in her own abilities. These positive affirmations were more than just words, they were tiny seeds of confidence that she was planting within herself. By the end of day 2, Emily had spoken more English than she had in months. Her fear of making mistakes had started to fade, replaced by a playful curiosity and a willingness to try. She felt like she was building a friendship with English, each conversation with herself a step closer to speaking fluently with others. Tomorrow, she planned to take this connection even deeper, diving into vocabulary building with her trusty notebook and a dash of creativity. On the morning of day 3, Emily woke up with a notebook clutched in her hand. This wasn't just any notebook, it was her secret weapon for mastering English vocabulary. After 2 days of immersing herself in English sounds and practicing speaking out loud, she knew it was time to build her word bank. Her goal was not only to learn new words but to make them stick in a way that felt natural and fun. Emily decided that every day, she would write down 5 new English words. She would gather them from podcasts, movies, or even random ads she encountered. The real twist, however, was how she planned to remember them. Instead of rote memorization, she would create the silliest, most vivid sentences possible. She believed that the crazier the sentence, the harder it would be to forget. She started with her first 5 words of the day: happy, chocolate, rain, dance, and shoes. She tapped her pen on the edge of her desk, thinking. Then, with a mischievous smile, she wrote, "I was so happy dancing in the rain with chocolate in my shoes." She chuckled to herself. It was absurd, but that was the point. Her mind immediately latched onto the image of chocolate squishing underfoot as she spun in the rain. The sentence painted a picture, making the words come alive. Throughout the day, Emily kept her notebook close. She added new words as they came, building sentences that felt like mini-stories. When she heard the word umbrella, she wrote, "My umbrella flew away, and now I'm having a water party with my clothes on." When she learned butterfly, she scribbled, "A butterfly told me the secret of flying, but I forgot it while eating ice cream." These whimsical scenarios transformed vocabulary practice from a chore into a game. As she walked through the city, Emily challenged herself to spot objects and silently create sentences. Seeing a red car, she thought, "The red car sings only when no one is listening." The practice became second nature. She even began to see English words in her surroundings, as if her mind had started translating the world into English automatically. Emily also dedicated time to revisiting her old entries. She flipped through the notebook before bed, reading her silly sentences aloud. Surprisingly, she found she could recall most of the words instantly. The combination of humor and repetition was working wonders. She felt like each word she learned was another brick in the bridge she was building toward confident English communication. By the end of day 3, Emily had not only expanded her vocabulary but had also strengthened her creative thinking in English. She realized that learning a language wasn't just about memorizing words, it was about weaving those words into her life, into stories, into fun. With her notebook full of quirky sentences and her mind buzzing with new vocabulary, Emily felt ready to take on the next challenge. Day 4 promised something entirely different, something that would push her to step out of her comfort zone and embrace a new role, an actor in her own English drama. When day 4 arrived, Emily felt an electric buzz of excitement. She had spent the first 3 days immersing herself in English, speaking out loud, and building her vocabulary with creative sentences. Her confidence was growing, but today, she was ready to take things to a whole new level. She wasn't just going to speak English, she was going to perform it. Emily had always loved movies, especially the ones where the characters delivered powerful lines with raw emotion. She decided to bring this drama into her English practice by acting out a scene from one of her favorite English films. She chose a short, heartfelt dialogue from a romantic comedy, a mix of humor and emotion that would allow her to practice different tones and expressions. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, a script in hand. The first few attempts felt stiff. Her voice was quiet, her gestures minimal. But with each repetition, she allowed herself to step deeper into character. She used her hands, her face, her whole body to express the lines. When the character in the movie laughed, she laughed out loud. When the scene turned serious, she softened her voice, creating a delicate tension in the room. Emily added her own flair to the performance. She experimented with accents, trying to mimic the rhythm and flow of native speakers. She practiced speaking slower and faster, louder and softer, learning how to control her voice. She even played with exaggerated expressions, scrunching up her face when the character was confused or widening her eyes in mock surprise. It was a playful, almost childlike approach, but it helped her feel the language rather than just speak it. Her bedroom became a stage, and her mirror was her audience. She recorded herself and watched the playback, noting areas to improve. She adjusted her pronunciation and tried again, each take smoother and more natural. The exercise also forced her to focus on the rhythm of English sentences, helping her understand not just the words but how they were delivered. Throughout the day, Emily switched between different scenes. She acted out a monologue from a drama, a comedic exchange from a sitcom, and even tried her hand at a few lines from an action movie, throwing in some pretend punches and dramatic stances. Her apartment echoed with lines like, "I can't believe you did this," and "You'll never get away with it." Her neighbors might have thought she was rehearsing for a play, but to Emily, it was all part of her English adventure. This dramatic approach had an unexpected benefit: it allowed her to connect with English on an emotional level. She wasn't just repeating phrases, she was embodying them. Each role she played helped her feel more at ease with expressing herself in English, especially with emotions that might otherwise be difficult to convey in a second language. By the end of the day, Emily felt like a different person. She wasn't just learning English, she was living it. The mirror no longer reflected a hesitant learner but a confident performer, ready to take on any conversation. She knew that when she finally set foot in the United States, she wouldn't just be speaking English, she'd be communicating with the full spectrum of her voice, her expressions, and her newfound courage. Tomorrow, she planned to take all this energy and channel it into real-world interactions. The thought of speaking English with others no longer felt daunting, it felt like the next thrilling chapter in her story. By the time day 5 arrived, Emily was brimming with confidence. She had spent the past 4 days deeply immersed in English, listening, speaking, expanding her vocabulary, and even acting out scenes from movies. Her apartment had transformed into a lively stage for her English practice, but now it was time to step beyond those 4 walls. She knew the best way to test her progress was to practice with real people, in real situations. Today's challenge was all about real-life English interactions. Emily decided to treat the day like a mini-adventure. She started by visiting a bustling cafe in her neighborhood, a popular spot for international tourists. As she stood in line, she mentally rehearsed what she would say. When her turn came, she smiled at the barista and confidently ordered, "Hi. I'd like a cappuccino, please. And can you recommend a pastry that goes well with coffee?" It was a simple exchange, but for Emily, it felt like a small victory. She had not only placed her order but also initiated a bit of casual conversation. The barista recommended a blueberry muffin, and Emily nodded, adding, "That sounds perfect. Thank you." Her next stop was the park. She sat on a bench near a group of tourists who were looking at a map. Gathering her courage, she approached them with a friendly, "Do you need any help finding something?" They were grateful for her offer, and soon she found herself giving directions to a nearby museum. The interaction flowed naturally, and for the first time, she felt like her English wasn't something she had to force, it was simply there, ready when she needed it. Encouraged by this success, Emily pushed herself further. She visited a local market where vendors called out their products in English. She wandered through the stalls, engaging with sellers. "What's the best way to cook these vegetables?" she asked one vendor. At another stall, she practiced small talk, commenting on the vibrant colors of the fresh fruit. The conversations varied in length, but each one added to her growing sense of ease with the language. As the day went on, Emily set many challenges for herself. She asked for directions even when she knew the way. She complimented a woman on her dress, sparking a brief but pleasant chat. She even started a conversation with a street performer, asking about his music and how long he had been playing. Each interaction felt like a step forward, building on the work she had done in the days before. She realized that speaking English wasn't just about getting the words right, it was about connecting, even in small ways, with the world around her. Emily also found joy in the unexpected. When a shopkeeper misunderstood her accent, she repeated herself with a smile, not feeling embarrassed but amused. When a child responded to her in a mix of English and their native language, she used gestures and expressions to bridge the gap. These moments showed her that communication was not just about language but also about attitude. Her willingness to try, to laugh at mistakes, and to keep going made all the difference. By the end of the day, Emily's notebook was filled with new words and phrases she had picked up. She had learned from real conversations, and those lessons felt deeper and more memorable. She returned home with a glow of satisfaction, knowing that she had not only practiced English but had also genuinely enjoyed each interaction. She had turned her city into a classroom, and every person she spoke with had been a teacher in disguise. As she prepared for bed, Emily reflected on the progress she had made. The girl who had hesitated to speak just days ago was now boldly striking up conversations with strangers. She felt like her trip to the United States was no longer a looming challenge but a thrilling opportunity. Tomorrow, she would take on even bigger tests, pushing her English to new heights. And for the first time, she wasn't just ready, she was excited. On day 6, Emily woke up with a sense of purpose. The previous day had been a whirlwind of real-life English practice, from ordering coffee to striking up conversations with strangers. She had felt the rush of speaking English naturally, and today, she was ready to take it even further. Her mission was clear: to hold a full conversation in English with a friend and push her speaking skills to the next level. She reached out to Sarah, a college friend who had recently moved to Australia from the United States. Sarah was a native English speaker and always encouraging, so Emily knew she would be the perfect conversation partner. She sent a quick message, "Hey Sarah. Are you free to catch up today? I'd love to chat and practice my English a bit more." Within minutes, Sarah replied enthusiastically, and they agreed to meet at a cozy cafe by the beach. As Emily walked to the cafe, she mentally prepared herself. She reminded herself of the small victories she had achieved so far, each conversation, every new word, and the confidence she had gained. But she also felt a tinge of nervousness. This wasn't just a casual chat, it was her chance to test everything she had learned over the past week. When she arrived, Sarah greeted her with a warm smile. They ordered their drinks, and as they sat down, Emily took a deep breath. She decided to start by sharing her journey. "You know, Sarah, I've been practicing English all week. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I've learned so much." Sarah's eyes lit up, and she leaned in, asking for details. The conversation flowed naturally from there. Emily shared funny stories about talking to herself in the mirror, making up silly sentences with new vocabulary, and even acting out movie scenes alone in her apartment. Sarah laughed, not at her, but with her, encouraging her every step of the way. Emily asked Sarah about her experience learning new languages and how she had adapted to living in Australia. The conversation was a real exchange, give and take, where Emily not only practiced speaking but also actively listened, responding with thoughtful questions and comments. The more they talked, the more Emily realized how much progress she had made. She no longer had to translate in her head. Her responses came naturally, with only a few pauses when she searched for the right word. And when she made a mistake, she didn't freeze up. Instead, she corrected herself with a laugh, and the conversation continued smoothly. At one point, Sarah suggested they play a little game. She would describe a scenario, and Emily would respond as if she were in that situation. "Okay, you're at a restaurant in New York City. The waiter asks if you want to try the chef's special. What do you say?" Emily grinned, slipping into character. "I'd love to. Could you tell me more about the dish? I'm always excited to try something new." The role-playing exercise turned into a fun back and forth, where Emily got to practice not just speaking but thinking quickly in English. After almost 2 hours of conversation, they decided to take a walk along the beach. The sea breeze added to the relaxed atmosphere, and Emily found herself chatting freely, sharing stories about her family, her job, and even her dreams for the future. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment. What had once seemed like a daunting task, speaking English for an extended period, now felt like a natural part of her day. When it was time to say goodbye, Sarah gave her a big hug. "Emily, you've come such a long way. Your English is amazing. I'm so proud of you." Emily blushed, but this time, she truly believed the compliment. It wasn't just polite encouragement, she had earned it. Her hard work, her persistence, and her willingness to step out of her comfort zone had paid off. Walking home, Emily felt a lightness in her step. She had spoken English for hours, not just surviving the conversation but truly enjoying it. She knew that tomorrow, day 7, would be her final test before heading to the United States. She had planned a self-assessment, a recording session and a written reflection on her week. But no matter how that turned out, she already felt victorious. She had set out to conquer her fears, and with each conversation, she had proven to herself that she could do it. When the sun rose on day 7, Emily knew it was the final stretch of her 1-week English challenge. She had spent the past 6 days fully immersing herself in the language, from listening and speaking to acting out movie scenes and engaging in real-life conversations. Each day had been a step toward building her confidence, but today would be the ultimate test. It was time to assess how far she had truly come. Emily had planned 3 specific challenges for herself: hold a 5-minute phone conversation in English, write a short paragraph reflecting on her week, and record herself speaking to analyze her progress. These tasks would push her skills to their limits and give her a clear sense of what she needed to improve before her trip to the United States. She started with the phone call. She dialed her friend Sarah, the same supportive friend she had met with the day before. As the phone rang, Emily felt a flutter of nerves, but when Sarah picked up, she took a deep breath and dove in. "Hi Sarah. I just wanted to thank you again for meeting me yesterday. I had such a great time practicing English with you." The conversation flowed naturally, with Emily asking about Sarah's plans for the weekend and sharing her own excitement for the upcoming trip. Unlike before, there was no awkward silence, no struggling to find words. She managed to keep the conversation going for more than 5 minutes, and when they said goodbye, Emily felt a rush of pride. The phone call had felt like a real, everyday conversation, exactly what she would need to navigate her travels. Next, Emily sat down with her notebook and began to write a short reflection. She wanted to capture not only what she had learned but also how it had made her feel. Her pen moved smoothly across the page as she wrote, "This week has been a turning point for me. At first, I was terrified of speaking English, but each day, I felt braver. I learned that making mistakes is part of the process, and it's okay to laugh at myself. I can't believe how much more comfortable I feel now. I am ready for this adventure." As she read the paragraph back, she realized how honest and genuine her words felt. Writing them in English had become second nature, no longer an intimidating task but a reflection of her true voice. The final challenge was the recording. Emily set up her phone, pressed record, and started speaking. She decided to talk about her upcoming trip, imagining she was sharing her story with a new friend. "I'm so excited to visit the United States. I've been practicing English all week, and I can't wait to use what I've learned. I want to meet new people, explore new places, and try speaking English as much as possible." She spoke for a few minutes, maintaining a steady flow. When she played the recording back, she focused on her pronunciation, intonation, and the rhythm of her speech. Of course, there were a few stumbles, but overall, she was amazed at how much more confident and natural she sounded. After completing all 3 tasks, Emily sat back and allowed herself a moment of celebration. She had done it, not just completed the challenges but transformed her relationship with English. What had once been a source of anxiety had become a gateway to new opportunities. Her suitcase sat half-packed in the corner of the room, a reminder that tomorrow, she would board a plane and put all her hard work to the test in the real world. As evening approached, Emily treated herself to a quiet walk by the waterfront. She let the cool breeze brush against her face, reflecting on her journey. She knew there would still be moments of hesitation, perhaps a bit of nervousness when speaking with native English speakers, but she no longer feared them. Instead, she looked forward to them as chances to grow, to learn, and to connect. When she finally returned home, she sat on her bed, holding her now well-worn notebook. It was filled with silly sentences, vocabulary notes, and scribbled affirmations. It was more than just a collection of words, it was a record of her growth, a tangible reminder of how far she had come in just 7 days. Emily drifted off to sleep with a smile on her face, knowing that tomorrow she would step onto that plane not just as a tourist but as an English speaker. She felt ready to embrace every conversation, every interaction, and every adventure waiting for her in the United States. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey, not just in learning a language but in discovering her own strength and resilience. The morning of her departure arrived, and as Emily boarded the plane to the United States, a mix of excitement and nerve swirled in her chest. Her week of preparation had transformed her from a hesitant English speaker into someone who not only understood the language but also felt ready to use it. The bustling sounds of the airport, the overhead announcements, and the casual conversations of fellow travelers, all in English, felt less intimidating and more like an invitation to engage. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the progress she had made over the past week. This was it. Her adventure had begun. From the moment she touched down in New York City, Emily approached every situation as an opportunity to practice her English. At the hotel check-in desk, she greeted the receptionist with a cheerful, "Hi. I have a reservation under Emily Turner." Her voice was steady, her pronunciation clear. When asked about her room preferences, she responded with ease, even throwing in a bit of small talk about the weather. The receptionist smiled warmly, making a comment about how pleasant it was to meet such a friendly traveler. Emily felt a rush of pride. Her English was not just understood, it was welcomed. Determined to explore the city, she joined a guided walking tour. The guide, a charismatic local, told stories about the city's history and culture. As the group moved through iconic landmarks, Emily found herself not only listening but also engaging with other tourists. She introduced herself, asked where they were from, and shared her own story of coming from Australia to visit America. Each conversation was a small victory, a reminder that her hard work was paying off. Emily's adventurous spirit led her into neighborhood cafes and shops where she struck up conversations with locals. She asked for recommendations on what to see, the best places to eat, and even got into a lively discussion with a bookstore owner about her favorite American novels. These interactions felt natural, and she noticed how much easier it was to think in English without the need to translate in her head. The language barrier that had once felt like a towering wall now seemed more like a gentle hill she could climb with ease. One of her favorite experiences came when she visited a bustling food market. Emily approached a vendor selling handmade jewelry. She admired a silver necklace, and instead of just purchasing it, she engaged the vendor in conversation. "This is beautiful. Do you make these yourself?" The vendor, a woman in her 60s, beamed with pride and shared the story of how each piece was crafted. They chatted for nearly 20 minutes, and by the end of the conversation, Emily not only left with a necklace but also with a new friend and a deeper appreciation for local craftsmanship. Her evenings were filled with exploring the city's vibrant culture. She attended a comedy show, where she laughed along with the crowd, understanding most of the jokes. At a small jazz club, she found herself talking to the musicians after their set, complimenting them on their performance. Each interaction added a new layer to her experience, making her trip not just a visit to new places but a genuine connection with the people around her. By the end of the week, Emily felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had navigated airports, ordered food, made new friends, and shared stories, all in English. She had even managed to help another traveler find their way, realizing that her English was now strong enough not just for herself but to assist others. The hesitant girl who had started her journey 7 days earlier was now a confident traveler, embracing every chance to communicate. On her last day, as she sat on a park bench overlooking the skyline, Emily reflected on her journey. She had done more than just practice English, she had proven to herself that she was capable of stepping outside her comfort zone and thriving. She had not only seen America but had truly experienced it, every conversation a brushstroke on the canvas of her adventure. When it was finally time to head back to Australia, Emily boarded the plane with a suitcase full of souvenirs and a heart full of new memories. Her English skills had grown, but more importantly, so had her confidence. She knew that when she returned home, she would bring this newfound boldness into her everyday life. Her trip had been more than a vacation, it had been a transformation. And as the plane soared into the sky, Emily felt ready for whatever new challenges awaited her back home. When Emily's plane touched down in Sydney, she felt a surge of gratitude and pride. Her week-long adventure in the United States had been more than just a vacation, it had been a transformative experience. As she wheeled her suitcase through the familiar airport, she noticed how different everything felt. The world around her hadn't changed, but she had. The confidence she had built while speaking English with strangers in a foreign country had become a part of her, and she wasn't about to let it go. Back home, Emily slipped seamlessly into her daily routine, but with a fresh perspective. She found herself continuing to speak English out loud, narrating her day as she had practiced before her trip. Her conversations with friends and colleagues were filled with stories about her travels, each anecdote a chance to use her improved language skills. She spoke with clarity and ease, surprising even those who had known her for years. Her shyness had been replaced with a boldness that drew people in. It wasn't just her English that had improved, it was her entire approach to communication. Energized by her success, Emily decided to take a leap of faith. She applied for a job at an international company that required strong English skills. During the interview, she shared her story of preparing for her trip, her week of intense practice, and how she had grown from a nervous English learner to a confident traveler. Her interviewer was captivated, not only by her language skills but also by her determination and growth mindset. When she received the job offer a week later, Emily knew it wasn't just because of her English, it was because of the confidence and resilience she had gained along the way. Her new role allowed her to connect with clients from all over the world. She led meetings in English, contributed to international projects, and even hosted calls with colleagues in the US and Europe. Each conversation was a reminder of how far she had come. She no longer felt the need to overthink her words or rehearse every sentence in her head. Instead, she focused on expressing her ideas and building connections, trusting her skills to guide her through. Outside of work, Emily continued to embrace her English learning journey. She joined a local English-speaking club where she met others who shared her passion for learning. She volunteered to help new immigrants practice English, offering the same kind of support and encouragement she had received. She had become not just a learner but a mentor, inspiring others with her story. Her personal life blossomed as well. With her newfound confidence, she expanded her social circle, attending events and engaging in conversations without hesitation. She struck up conversations with tourists in the city, sharing tips and exchanging stories. Her once quiet and reserved demeanor had transformed into a warm and approachable presence. She had become the kind of person who could make anyone feel welcome, regardless of the language barrier. Emily's story spread among her friends and community. People began to ask her for advice on learning English, and she happily shared the techniques that had worked for her: immersive listening, speaking out loud, creating funny sentences, and practicing with purpose. She even started a blog, writing about her journey and offering tips to others who wanted to improve their English. Her posts quickly gained attention, with readers from around the world leaving comments and sharing their own experiences. Through it all, Emily remained grounded. She never forgot those early days when speaking English felt daunting, when she had stood in front of her mirror, practicing simple phrases. She knew that her success wasn't just about learning a language but about building confidence and taking risks. She had learned that mistakes were part of the process and that every stumble was a step forward. As she sat on her balcony one evening, looking out over the city, Emily reflected on how far she had come. The girl who had once been afraid to speak English had now built a life filled with new opportunities, meaningful connections, and endless possibilities. She felt grateful for every challenge, every awkward conversation, and every small victory that had led her here. Her journey was proof that with persistence and a bit of courage, anything was possible. Emily's story became a reminder to everyone around her: it's not just about the destination, but about the journey. And sometimes, the biggest adventures happen when you step outside your comfort zone and find the confidence to share your voice with the world. Emily's story is a testament to the power of perseverance, curiosity, and the willingness to step outside of one's comfort zone. Her journey from a hesitant English learner to a confident, accomplished communicator wasn't just about mastering a language, it was about discovering her own inner strength. Through a week of focused practice, she transformed not only her skills but also her mindset, proving that real growth often comes from the moments when we challenge ourselves the most. Her experience in the United States, filled with authentic conversations and genuine connections, became the bridge between who she was and who she aspired to be. She returned to Australia with more than just souvenirs and stories. She brought back a renewed sense of confidence and a vision for her future. This confidence propelled her into a new job, a vibrant social life, and opportunities she had once only dreamed of. Emily's journey reminds us all that learning a language is not just about vocabulary and grammar but about embracing mistakes, celebrating small victories, and building lasting confidence. She showed that every interaction, every sentence spoken, and every risk taken added to her growth. The English words that once felt foreign had become a natural part of her voice, allowing her to express herself fully and connect with the world around her. Her story is a powerful reminder: whether it's learning a language, pursuing a new skill, or taking on a personal challenge, the key is to start, to keep going, and to believe that progress is possible. Emily did not let fear hold her back, and in doing so, she unlocked new doors to a fulfilling, dynamic, and truly international life. As she continues on her path, she inspires others to take that first step, speak out loud, and let their voices be heard, because, as Emily proved, the journey to confidence begins with just one word.